depends on what you're doing. But just to spray water on it, it might be a chance it gets wet quick, but it also dry away. It's like with the saddle makers. We have saddle makers here. Okay, so like for you, it's really important when you're tooling to have the right temper, and to keep it in there. It's another thing, So I know you guys probably use soap or something to close the fiber so moisture will stay in there.
I usually case mine, put it in a plastic bag, put it in the refrigerator.
Okay.
And then if it's a big area,
right,
I'll keep some of that in that plastic bag.
Okay. But this is a special thing, if sometimes in the middle in the summer when it's really hot, I don't braid, it just doesn't work. Some people just keep spraying their water on it and all that thing. So some spots, you always have tiny little weak spots and good spots in it. But the weak spots, they're kind of a little bit mushy. They'll soak up a lot more water. And the problem is, if you got wet spots and a little drier spots, or you have those mushy spots in there and you start pulling on it and it's a little moist, it'll get off shape. And it also shows this soft spots, that are mushy spots, when you're finished with the braiding, because those fibers start sticking out on your finished braid, So be very careful spraying too much water on it. Better just stop it or don't even do it. I mean, sometimes I have to force myself not braiding because I feel like I really braid so bad. I haven't braided for 3 days, but the weather doesn't allow me, the air doesn't allow me to braid, But you feel sorry later on, no matter how you roll it or hammer it or whatever, you ruin the rawhide. And yeah.
Those soft and mushy spots, are those more due to where you're cutting in a circle, like what part of the hide it's coming from? Or?
Yeah, this mushy spots could be like if you have, let's start it that way. I'm going to draw you guys there you go. What a big old pig. Yeah. Okay, that's good here. We got mushy spots right in here. We got mushy right in here. We could have those mushy spots right here. If you're looking on a hide, if you're making a hide, you got those wrinkles line going that way. So this is no good. That'll kid. Like most of the time, you want to, you did all this hard, heavy, long time doing those hides, and I mean, you don't want to cut off, you want to use that stuff. And I discovered that this stuff here, if I do a round piece like this, and if you cut the string out, just a part of here, that'll get you the mushy spots, So what I do most of the time, if it's then I cut one here, and then I cut a big one here, and I cut another big one right here, and this part here, some other people do little rounds here. I not do this at all. This is for me one of the best rawhide you can get out of a cow here on the belly, and I always leave them long. I cut them like this. This will make nice, really nice, strong buttons, thin button strings, and this here, this is kind of like the Argentinas on the horses. You use this part, So if you notice this already, it won't stretch. That stuff doesn't stretch, Like this here, I like to use for nose and heel buttons. Like this here, you could use for framework. And this here, nice and thick, I would use for cores. But I will stretch this and this. So I cut this out and cut them in a 1/2 or 3/4 inch. Throw them in the water overnight or 24 hours, depends on. I just noticed this scalloped hides, this cooked hides, scalded hides, they're totally different feel to work with. And I've seen over at Brent's, we were kind of tempering hides and stuff like this. They take longer to go through. Don't stretch hides like on the Rawhiders or anything that they're not soaking all the way through. The problem is if they're not soaking all the way through, maybe the drier spots inside will hold against the stretch, and the soft outside may break, because I think a cowhide, the fibers go in different ways than in a horse. Like you can see if you split a cowhide and if you split a horsehide, if you split it off, it'll come off in sections. It doesn't go through fibers, and that's why you got to be careful when you have different types of processed rawhide, how you take care of it. So a scalded hide stays for me longer in the water, but it will never have the same feel if you take it out of the water after 24 hours. Then you have one that's been made through lime, or all kinds, or scraped, like a hand scraped hide goes the quickest for me if it doesn't has a lot of oil in it. That's another thing. Like when I was 2 years ago at Jeff, he had one hide that was scalded. It had a lot of fat in it, still. And I mean, this thing was dripping of oil, and I don't know what it was, just a fat cow or whatever. I never saw anything like it. I mean, you were working this hide, the strings, you always felt like you have greasy hands, And this kind of hides, they're very, very hard to really work and get nice strings out of it and all this. But we had to do something with it, And if you got the hide, and if you feel like doing something, go ahead and do it. But be prepared, it's not going to look the same as a nice dry hide. Like over in Europe, our tanneries, they do something to the hide. It don't matter how fatty or greasy the hide is, they degrease the hide while they're processing to make the rawhide. But nobody wanted to tell me yet how they did it, I always thought that has something to do because all the hides that are in the tanneries, they're salted, And I tell you right away, these are cowboy stories. Salted hides will not harm your rawhide. I do let's say, I'm not lying, I use about 2/3 of my rawhide. I buy it in the tanneries, and they're all salted, One of my best, toughest Rawhiders I've ever made are all out of salted rawhide. I hear a lot of people telling us salted rawhide is no good, I mean, that's the only way they could hold these hides in those tanneries, stack them up in pallets, like for a half year, 3/4 year, But it doesn't do anything to the rawhide. So you don't have, I'm pretty sure Hereford byproducts, they had them all salted because that was the only way they could, have them that long on the plant, But anyway, then I'll cut the rounds out of it, and as soon as I get smaller and smaller, I will get my draw gauge. I get that smaller too, And if I'm just about in the center of here, I will have the final width of the string I'm going to make, Don't think if you're going around, you always can have the same. That's why I got all my marks on the floor, and I always make depends on the size of the hide, but I try and always to make the same size of discs. So I kind of got a measurement the way I'm walking back, so I can drop a little more on the size of a string, you know. Then I throw the string in the water. By the way, I do the same thing as the 4 strands of rawhide DVDs. This DVD will answer all your rawhide problems, but you have to look at the DVD 100 times, you know, and pick up every little thing you can just listen to, you know. But this, for me, it's one of the most important things. Put it in the water, leave it in there, get it all mushy through wet, and then stretch it out, you know. Get the stretch out. Like, don't overstretch it. This is another problem. Let's look back. If I have a height like this in a frame, I don't like round frames. I tell you right away, I think this is wasting time, those round frames. I just hate them, you know. I like to have my frames with hooks, so they really, the way I tie them out there, they'll stay that way. I noticed this at Brent's place this last week. We'd stretched hides and things. As soon as you kind of touch this hide, or a hide while it's drying, it stretches himself, pulls on those strings. On a round frames, those strings will move on you. In some places, it'll get loose. In some places, will stretch a lot. You know, so I like to have mine 7.5 by 7.5 foot square with hooks every 3 inches, and they'll stay where they at. You know, and then you may have some white mushy spots on some places, you know. You'll notice that if you got a clear hide, you got so white, mushy, white look on it. This you can't cut through and make strings with. That will never give you a good string. Always go around those. They're all, let's say, if this is a half of a hide, you always got mushy spots like about this big most of the time, and they kind of wander all over. And like I stay there looking at the hide. I go down there every 10 minutes and I see this thing getting bigger, you know. You can watch them getting bigger while it's drying. I said, oh, please, not more, you know. But if you got those white spots in your hide, go around it. Don't take them into your disc. It'll ruin your rawhide. Because if you got them in there, like if you split them, it's like it never dries or anything. It's just a bad piece of string, you know. And it shows you already in the frame. I don't know whoever made rawhide already and got those things in there, you know. And you notice yourself that if you got them in your strings, it's bad. Don't matter how big, if it's a frame string or whatever, you know. By the way, if we stretch rawhide, I only stretch the rawhide strings, the ones they have a lot of pull on. I never stretch nose button strings, or heel button strings either. And the nose button string, you go over one, under one, and I like to braid real tight. I mean, tight. I got taught that way myself, you know. And if you have those, if you take rawhide, like I would never go out of this part for a nose button because it doesn't have any stretch at all. Like as soon as you go over, maybe pairing up is still okay, but if you start splitting your pairs and you go with your awl underneath it to make room for the string going through, and you have it already tight, it'll break the top grain on you because that hide will not stretch, you know. That's why I don't use anything of this here to make nose buttons with, or heel buttons. Like if you go like over 4, over 5, under 5, something like this, you got to go a long ways and just kind of look for it. And that's when you look for where you come out, you can hurt the strings. They crack on you. And that's why I never stretch anything for nose buttons or any kind of buttons that needs to be real tight. if I got a, let's go to this here now. After I got it like 12 or 15 or 20 hours in the water, I take it out, stretch it out on the fence. Just stretch it so you got to feel like there's a certain time the rawhide will stop on you stretch. And that's where you set it and leave it there and let it dry out completely. Making rawhide takes time. Don't be in a hurry. Yeah.
Guilty, been there,
Yeah,
done that.
yeah. There's no way you can do nice work or getting nice rawhide being in a hurry. I've been in this situation many times because I need to get this thing done. I mean, it just ruins your work, you know. So take your time doing this. For me, from this here to this finished thing to go and braid, it takes me between 7 and 10 days to have it cased and have pet on it and, you know, be nice to it. You know, like, I love this stuff, but it just needs time. Tempering, take it out. It might be a little bit too wet, so I'll leave it out in the shop while I'm braiding, let it sit there, keep touching it every 10 minutes, you know, put it back in. Or if it's too dry, I might spray a little bit of my fabing soap, leave it out, let that soap suck in, and then I'll put it back in a plastic bag, you know. And maybe if it's too dry, I got like three barrel, big tempering barrels in my shop. I put them back in a tempering barrel overnight, you know. And that's the first thing I get up in the morning, like at 5:30. I just run over to the shop to that tempering barrel, you know, and take that thing out, touch it, and if it's good, the way I want it, I put it in a plastic bag, you know. This is that serious thing, I think, you know. I mean, that's the only way if you take your time. It just works great. It feels good, and you go a long ways. You're not afraid of strings breaking, you know, like from all way to the start. If you try avoid to get into those weak spots and bad rawhide, you don't have to worry about later on braiding having those weak spots. And you always think like, oh, that weak spot has got to come somewhere, you know. And so if you got good rawhide, boy, it's fun to braid, you know. And then you get a final good product you can sell for good money, and you can pay your bills, you know. And then, like here, to take, like some guys say the good parts come out of the backbone of for a core. Some yes, some not. It's not all right. If you really have a close look and feel along the backbone, you'll have different feels on that rawhide. And if you start twisting this rawhide, you may have a core that maybe is harder on one side than the other, while you're bending your bosal then, you know. And you always feel like this bosal is to one side. And the problem is, if you're not having the same stiffness through your whole core, it can make a horse sore, because it has give on one side and it's really stiff on the other side. And that stiff place on one side of the bosal will make always push a horse to one side. I noticed that some horses are even get their heads off shape like this, because they know this stiff part is going to hit me. So they're going to start holding their head like this too. And pretty soon the girl or whoever says they think it's saddle or necks or whatever. It's just your bosal, you know. I wanted to come to this. For me, to get with a core across the backbone, for me personally, I would never do it. This is absolutely against the law. If you twist like I twist my core, the core will crack right there when they touch the backbone. That's why if I make riatas, I never go like a lot of other people go over the backbone. I noticed this if I pull my strings on a riata and they get to the spot. I did it. I made a red line. I ruined the whole hide just for this. I drew a red line across the backbone, and then I cut the whole hide apart, in spirals. And I made all these tests, And it always, wherever that red spot was in the joint, where it sucks it right in, that's where I had the crack on the top grain. Yeah. And that's what you don't want. And,
It'll split different too, running it through the splitter, right?
Yeah. It's just a hard spot. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, no, this is just something
But
I've been thinking about.
I did tons of ways trying to do it, but I always had bad luck getting over the backbone, Like what I like to do is, if I got an even height, that's like a brown Swiss is, I like to cut my frame. Oops, dried on me. I like to cut my frame strings out of this. Whatever you cut in a straight length on the rawhide will be the toughest because it doesn't have a weak or a stretch part, So if you have a good hide that's not like, I don't want to take any bull hides, something like this, to make bosals with, because bull hides they're very in different thicknesses, big time. I want to have a hide for frames or whatever. They're even. They're not really. That's why, like Bill Doran said, he likes to have riata hide out of a heifer or out of a cow because you don't have to split as much. It's like Glenn said this morning. Always choose a hide for something that you will like, that you have a plan in your head to braid. Like I had some hides I only made for course. So for a course, if you have a big, huge, heavy bull hide, you can make like single for a 1/2 inch. You want to have some stiff cores. I make the cores, the first one. If you make a 5/8 with double core, I take a thicker part for the center and a thinner part for the second draw. But you have to be careful. Like if you have a 5/8 bosal, a frame. I rather have, like for a stiffer core, for a stiffer bosal, I like to have a thicker core and a thinner frame string. That will also braid up better. Like if you have a thin string, but white, and if you braid them 16 plat, you can pull on that sucker and it'll slip all the way up like a foot and more, But if you have a thick string, and a smaller one, as soon as you braid like 3 or 4 inches, all the other strings on top of that string will kind of squeeze them down and won't let you pull on it all the way up there. So pretty soon, if you want to, like in the first few braids, you may do it, but as soon as you got farther down there, you can't pull them anymore, but you see them up there, they're still loose. That's how you break strings, So as thinner as your frame strings are, as nicer, as tighter they go into each other and won't brace the other one, so you can't pull it. You understand what I mean? Just ask. My English is not so good, but I'm trying to tell you guys, in an easy way. A thin frame string will braid a lot better and tighter than a thick one. I see them a lot out there. I had a lot of bosals in my hand, and I can tell by the way, the look on the braid, the thinner strings, they're laying a lot nicer, they're tighter, they're smoother to touch than the ones they think that this is cowboy stuff, like thick strings, it'll hold a long ways, It doesn't. If if your frame is not tight braided and it gets water to it, like especially for me, let's say a working cowboy. A working cowboy for me needs the best piece of braided gear he can do because he puts it to work outside. And if you got a loose braid on your buzz the water will go in there big time. The bugs, the dirt will go in there big time. And pretty soon you can't that thing, let's say, if you got dirt and everything in there, it will not get into the same shape. Like if you ever had rawhide wet, it will in the first, maybe second time, it'll shrink back to its normal. But if you keep making it moist and wet all the way through, pretty soon it'll be limber like this, and it has no life in it anymore. But if you braid up a hackamore like this, very tight, it can be as moist and water and whatever, it will always stay where it is in place. But if you already braid loose and slack and, then that bosal will die on you. It'll start hanging. It'll be a piece for no use anymore after a while, you don't want that. Like if you have a cowboy that spends like $400 or $500 on a bosal from you, and it'll die on him after a while, not having any body, nothing anymore, he will not get in the next one from you. So make it tight and just kind of a piece that will be usable all the time. Sometimes for me it's hard to explain. But braid as tight as you can. That's my answer. I've seen nose buttons. It's like actually, if I can tell you guys that Jeff is my teacher. He taught me all I know, and I said before I leave him, I'd like to buy a bosal from him. So he sold me a 5/8, and I took it down to California. And in California, I had it like 2 or 3 weeks, and the nose button slipped off, the braided. Because down there, that air was so dry in California in the summertime that rawhide just turned loose, And I told him that, and he said, And I didn't know anything about braiding then, like no experience. So he told me, I must have braided a little bit too loose, So I had that always in my brain later on. Said you better braid tight so it will not happen. You must have felt bad for him. I sent a thing back to him, and it's bad. If you have a bosal like this, and that nose button slips off, and you have to do one back on. This is so terrible. I mean, I did it. I've done it, but it's a terrible way of putting a nose button on while it's closed here already. So Jeff did it, and it came out really nice. But that's why I always telling you, braid real tight, especially up here. Get them nice and close. Like if they get moist after a while, those strings will be loose after a while, being worked on the rain and the weather, and you might slip on you someday. Especially not on this one, but if you have a bosal made without a nerve knot, it'll be easy to slip on you. And I've seen a lot of those bosals slip on you. They're made the Doran style. They have a totally different way crowning than like I do. And this always kind of a loose braid. And I saw a bunch of them being really loose and slip off, And that's why I'm saying go tight. I mean, really go tight, But not too tight, especially for the over one, under one, that you might have a problem to start splitting the pairs then, And another thing is, if you take stretched height for this, you may have later on problem to bend this bosal from straight down to the shape, because this height will not give. Especially if you have inner weaves in there, then you're in trouble, And like if you got an inner weave here, you guys see sometimes they got a little gaps in here. If you have a height that doesn't give or it's stretched. There's no way you can move those things and all this. It's just no chance. So don't use any stretched hide, and never use hides from here for a nose button. It's okay in the heel, but I don't even like it in the heel because you have to go around so many times, and those top grain can crack on you, you know. But here, it'll be fine, you know. But here, no way. And that's why I also like to have this part here on the horse to braid frames with, you know. To braid Bosalito frames with, you know. It's nice. You can have a thicker core. It's thin, and you can pull quite a bit, and it makes it a nice, smooth frame. And like if I really have a big cow, and I need thin strings for, like if I really want to make like this here, that 7/16, it's out of a cow belly. I need to have a thick, heavy, stout core, but I needed to have a thin string for the frame, you know. I took it out of this cow. It was also like that cow was over 5.5 square yards, and I took it out of the belly, and I still had this part in it. You know, I had this about 6 foot long, and then I just stretched this here still to get this part was like it stretched from here to there. I stretched so much out of it, you know. But I had enough, like a 7/16, a 3/8, or a 5/8 Bosalito for me takes up 5 foot. With the excess string out, takes about 5 foot, 5 inches, something like this. And I still have plenty to crown my heel button with, you know. So if you have a big cow, you can use this no problem for a Bosalito frame, you know. And or I've been using a deer hide or elk hide, whatever. That's good too. But anyway, for buttons, nose buttons, heel buttons, I really like these here. They're thin. You don't have to split a whole lot. This is a real easy making rawhide string out of the neck and shoulder. They're pretty good. I don't go very far that way, but most of the time I can take one right above the shoulder on the neck and behind, and then I get to the big one. You know. Like this here, I usually I go about between 3 and 4 inches away from the backbone. I start cutting these out, and they're about what do you usually use them? What do we did them? Yeah, something like this. And I like to cut them about, let's say, about to here. Don't go below, you know, the flank. Right. If I still cut them like this, I use this part here maybe for a quirt, for shorter pieces. But if you cut them that way, you don't have to split them too much back here. This is always the problem. You have 2 different colors in the bosal. If you split a lot here, and you don't have to split there, this will maybe be still clear, and that will be turning wide, you know. And if it's a good hide and that's turned, what I do, I just mix. I mix the rawhide. I take the white part here, and I take the clear part here, you know. Don't mix it up like 3 here, because your brain will get that in his system the way you pull, you know. And everybody knows when he's braiding a frame, a 16 plat, and if you don't pull the same on those strings, it'll look awful. And you also come off to one side. It'll have a twist on you. It's like for me, in the summertime, I can braid frames with no twist. In the wintertime, I have really heavy arthritis in the right shoulder. All my winter time braided frames have slightly a twist in it because I'm weak. And if they get off twist, I might have them twist so much on purpose then if you put them together, they look like those Nate Walt bozals. You know, they got those V's going the same way. So I try to do that twist up there under the nose button so quick it'll stay that way, you know. So I got reasons doing this, all this. It's cheating. But this is another thing with this cricket. People putting too much effort into straight knots. Don't focus on this too much. It'll kill you after a while. It'll freak you out, you know. I mean, who doesn't like Luis Ortega's work? I don't think there's anybody in here doesn't like his work. No. If he is, he needs to be kicked out. No. Because he's my hero. And I don't care how much his stuff, and he's twisted, but it's usable. I always make gear that it's been usable and not just for pretty looking at it, you know. Doesn't matter if it's cricket or something that's not so good, as long as it's usable. Because you always, like Brent had a good deal. I was in Germany throwing stuff on the walls because I just couldn't get that thing straight. String broke on me. I was just freaking out, and Brent wrote me, texting me, and how you doing? I said, I'm going to quit Rawhide. And he said, well, just go down, pet your bridle horse, and think about why you're doing all this. It's because your bridle horse. Boy, he got me on my nerves. Just telling me that. Think why you're doing this. It's for horse. It's for a bridle horse, and it needs to fit. The bridle horse doesn't care what it's going to look like, if there's a twist on it or not. We're having an association out there that puts too much effort into straight braiding. I think it needs to be usable. And it needs to be, don't matter how fancy it's braided up, it needs to be out there fitting on a horse. You can sit on it, go and work. That's why we're making art. It's the same with a saddle maker. If that saddle just looks pretty, but the rigging is off, the trees is off, all this, it's sure a nice saddle from outside, but it don't work on the horse. And it makes the horse sore. And it's the same with bozals, same with reins. For me, a rein has to have, the rein and the romal has to have the same weight. If that romal is too heavy, you don't notice this, but that romal will get you off on a horse. It'll get you somehow. It's not the same balance on it. That's why Louis always said, try to have your romal and your reins in the same weight, so it'll be balanced in there, you know. And it helps. Also, nowadays you see those long romals or those very long reins. I know if you're showing in romals, you can't have chains, you know. But it's still, they need to be balanced. That's very, very important. And it's the same with a bozal, you know. If you were like Louis used to, I know Louis used to have short nose buttons like I do, and the competition people, they made him making those longer nose buttons, and he wanted to put color in it, and there lots of color in it. You can't do it as good as in a long nose button, so he made them like 8.5, 9 inches, you know. If you got a good hackamore horse that goes really well, he don't care if it's 9 or 6 or 7 inches, because he knows already how to go with, you know. But to train a horse with a hackamore in a 7, some guys go already in a 6. I think if you got a 6-inch bozal nose button with nerf nuts on it, the nerf nuts will not be in the right place to help him, you know. The average I kind of start figured on the average nowadays quarter horse will be a 7.5-inch with nerf nuts, will be right in place where it needs to be, and it's balanced, you know. I always get a big old smile on it if I get people using kind of cheap hackamores and the horses don't work, and then they get one of my hackamores said, boy, this is just like having power steering, you know. And that tells me things are in the right place. And that's like I said, I don't worry about straightness in the buttons. It happens anyway. They're nice and straight, but for people, they're putting already too much effort into getting it straight, and they get off track big time because they start moving strings with their awls and they start ruining their strings and all this. Just braid it through, get the feel of it, and get good at doing things. And then later on they will get straight,
Or they get real good at cutting them off and start over.
Well, this is another thing. I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, I cut things off if I see the strings are getting ruined, or they break or crack on me or something like this. I can't stand that. I rather have a off-shaped nose button than cracks in my rawhide.
Sharp knife is a good cheap.
Yeah, it is. And I got tons. I got a box full of it. I had a big old axe that I cut right through the whole hackamore because I've done it maybe 3 or 4 times already. And this is very important too. If you got a finished product, you just braid it up. Always hold it in front of you and think about it. Would you buy that piece yourself? If you don't, you better do better next time, But if you make something up, don't matter what it is, you want to have it that way that you would buy it yourself. If you don't like it, that's it, It's the way I look at it. After I got this stuff in dried, stretched, I throw it back in the water. But while you're taking it off, when it's stretched and dry, be careful the rawhide doesn't bend on you, like kink on you. Yeah.
Well, when you stretch it, you just
Along the fence, between trees.
But if it's got a sag,
It will sag after when it gets dry. It will.
You don't pull it.
No.
You just.
I only do it one stretch, let it hang there, and while it's drying, it gets softer.
But I mean, if it had a big hoop in it all the way through this room, that's okay. It stretches itself in that.
Yeah, it
But
depends on how long the string. Like if I have a half-inch string from here to to the door over there, it should stretch that it's almost straight, hanging straight. But if you got one like, let's say, 20 yards. If you want to get that one straight, you'll ruin the rawhide.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, let it have its own weight.
Oh yeah. But that's why I'm saying if you stretch a hide, you certainly feel while you're stretching there's a stop, And some people, let's do a little more, And that's where you start ruining your weak spots. Right, exactly. And then you tie it. And after it's dry, you take it off, roll it up, put it back in the water, and let it sit there and get it all the way wet through again until it's like it was before, like really all the way through wet. And then I'll take my splitter here and run it through the splitter. Like I was watching 4 Strands of Rawhide, and I got a scraper, a splitter like this, but I thought, if they can do it with that one, and I made one like this, and it's okay, but I run them with this one here. Boy, it was just nice and smooth. I didn't have to do a whole lot. It just runs that mushy, wet string. If that one is sharp, you don't have to worry about anything. You just run that thing through, and you can skive it down to, really nice. And you can also go thicker than you would have to when you have a normal hide like case like this. If you got a all the way through wet string, you can split like half of the string down with no problem. And I tell you what, it goes really quick and fast. And then after I got that thing split, I hang it up there again and let it dry, but not all the way through. I let it dry to the feel of I would braid. Like I noticed when I was up at Chef's, the air is so dry here, it may dry from the flesh side and from the hair side quicker. It'll be still mushy inside. And this is sometimes like if you bend the string like this, it gets wrinkled outside. Yeah. So what you got to do, you got to take it in. It's like if you have smoked dry meat. You know, it dries real quick at the outside, but it's still raw inside. So you pack it up, put it away, let it case, and then tang it out again. As soon as I do the same thing with rawhide. I'll let the moisture from inside go back out, and then let it dry up again a little bit. And I put it back in the sack and take it back out, and like a few days I do this until I got the feel all the way through. Sometimes you even take a piece and cut like in the angle like this and look at the rawhide the way it's inside, you know. But it might feels good outside, but as soon as you start working this, it'll be mushy, you know. So take your time. That's why it's good for me to come over here, do rawhiding, and then go back to Europe or go in different places. I can see with what you guys dealing, you know. I can tell you guys, oh, this is no problem, but I know now what you guys have to fight with, you know. It's a different air and different countries, and like for me up at Chef's, it was just awful doing rawhiding, you know. Yeah, it is for me. I'm so in an easy country, and Jan too. It's just the moisture is there, you know. So doing the rawhide here, the plastic bags, those big old zipper bags, I've been buying them tons here in the States. They help me a lot to put the rawhide back in, take it back out, and if you take if you have that patient doing all this, you get good strings, you know. And yeah.
Always something like the first time you told us about pulling the wet, soaking wet, soak it through the splitter. People might think it might be uneven, but he even showed us after it dried out and we cut the final string.
Right.
When we split it, it had an even split down
Oh,
the
it's
string. It wasn't
absolutely
thick and
even.
thin,
Yeah.
thick.
Exactly. And it's a good way. I mean, it helped me a lot, my idea. I mean, this I really discovered myself. And if you got a sharp knife and pulling those wet strings through, boy, it's really easy. And you got a nice even split on it. But
But
you
the
got...
the mushy will be the same thickness when it gets caged.
Yeah, it'll be the same. Yeah. Or what do you mean?
So it won't be the same thickness.
What do you mean, the
it'll just
mushy?
be even.
What I do, this is like a pre-cut. Like if you guys wanna cut like all the way around the cow, you got all kinds of different thicknesses. And you want to even all this out to the thinnest part of the string. I do it with this here completely wet. And it'll be real easy to get the nice even string that way. Sometimes if you have real thick parts, you have to run this very long string through your cutter many times, through your splitter many times. I do it maybe once or twice. And it'll be nice even string. And if you let it dry up, it'll be still. Like if it's all dry, you can take your calipers, it'll stay all the way around the same thickness. If it's soaking up. Yes, sir.
Now, when you're cutting from your soak to your finished string, what ratio do you like with the thickness? Do you try to stay like, some people say 1:2, some people say 1:3, where the thickness is
the best string for me, it's like if you look on a brick, 1-3, or 1-2 for me, it's already a little bit too square. I like to have think about it as a wider string as you have, as more he lays down. You know, if you have those short, small strings, they'll have more knives sticking out. You know.
And that's even in your button string.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it needs to be smooth. And if it's a good horseman or whatever, he's taking care of the rawhide. I don't worry so much about the thickness, but they sure need to be thick. Like if I have let's say a 1/8 of an inch in the width of string. I like to have them like 1/16 or a little less, But I go by the feel. Like if I take on a normal average cow out of the neck here and out of the shoulder, this is like the normal thickness I've been using on a nose button. I just kind of even out things, But I will not take more than that, This is, if you really check on it, those shoulder or neck sides, they make really nice, perfect nose button and heel button strings. This is really good. The only thing I do with, if I die strings, I always stretch all my die strings. Because I have to do this before I throw them in the water, because when I take them out, I don't let them dry, take them out of the die and hang them someplace. I like to run them through a towel to take off all the excess water with dye on it. Otherwise, if you don't do this, if you're going to start braid and you still have that excess stuff on there, it might get into your other hides, And bleed, yeah. And also, if you take your towel, making them a little dry, while you're doing this, if it's not pre-stretched, it will pull your string off shape, and it might be small spots and bigger spots. That's why I like to take the stretch out of a string before I dye them. You know what I mean? So
You just cut the...
Yeah, I would never dye a rawhide like if I cut it out of a round, and I would just, I make some like deer hide. I make little discs and throw them in the dye, if I need long strings. But I still have them about this, make them about this wide here, the pre-cut then.
And then stretch.
And then I'll stretch it. Yeah, that's what I do. I have like a broom handle with a slit in it, and then I'll stretch them that way. I just kind of roll them out, and take the stretch out while it's on the moist side, and then I'll let it dry until it's perfect to cut rawhide. There's a certain time you just cuts like butter, and then if I want to have if I have the string finished with the bevel on and everything, and I don't want to show the bevel in my braid with the collar, I throw it back into the bucket and dye it again just for the bevel, And I take it out, wipe it off again, and let it hang until it's ready to braid with. So we already got a second time we go with the towel through. If you didn't take that stretch out, by the time you got some places really small and some are the same, and you don't want this. I pay a lot of attention to my rawhide that I got all the way through the same width of the same width of the rawhide. For me, it's very important not to have a big string, small string, big string, small string. I can see that sometimes. Most of the time, I see it in frames. Some of them will pull more, and some of them pull less on those. They're not stretched enough. Then they'll go smaller on you, and some of them stay bigger. And that's why everything that needs to have pull on it needs to be stretched. And that's why I'm saying this 4 strands of rawhide from Bill and Randy, this is best braiding movie ever been made out there. Because it has so many things you can see in there. You say, man, I wish I'd done this 20 years ago. This DVD opened for me a brand new world of rawhide braiding. And if you look at it many, 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 many times, you'll always discover,
Which one?
It's 4 strands of rawhide. Yeah. And it's just, I just love this movie. Just listen to Randy Riemann and Bill's stories, but it helps in your braiding big time. It's very simple the way they do things, but it helps you a lot in the start, And so, but anyway, for making making a core, I cut them very wide. I don't cut them like 1/2 inch or 3/4. I cut them most of the time 1 inch, maybe even more. But I like to have big rounds to do this. And I cut them down, throw them in the water, stretch them out. And while I'm stretching, before I stretch them, what I like to do for making cores, this is like a secret. I like to dye my cores. Some people seen it on Facebook. I had red ones, dark brown ones. The reason I do this, if you flesh a cowhide or a bull hide and you taken your flesher too deep, you'll have low spots in your hide. And if you dye this rawhide before you cut it apart, you got it like a black or red, and you cut it apart and you pull it through your splitter, you will always see if there's still a low spot in it because it's still dye. All the parts you split, the dye is gone. So you always notice, and you don't want any low spots in a core because it will weaken your core and it's bad to twist on. That's why I dye my rawhide. Just you really see all these low spots. Or you got a cut in there or something. Sometimes you just don't see it. Depends on the color of the rawhide. But you will see it when you have it dyed. You'll see any kind of low spots on it. This is the reason I do it. And it helps. I tell you guys, I will not do it again without it. It just really shows all your low spots. And it also shows you how you work your fleshing knife. One of a sudden, if you start watching this, and you see all these low spots in your hide, you might be more careful with your fleshing knife, not taking the hide too, only the flesh. So that'll teach you a lesson too. It's like, I got another low spot right there. And if you notice, maybe, you know where you took more than you should have. There's always certain places you take more than in others, Or if you got like a dairy cow, like dairy cows lay in the mud, or they got those big old balls on them. This is the first thing I do, get rid of all these balls, because this is bad fleshing, And that's why I like to pressure power hose my hides before I flesh them or anything, to get rid of all this dirt, And these are bad spots. I mean, they get really low spots on you if you want to do cores. So, whatever. Do you have any more questions? Made it all.
You mentioned that you've seen a difference between the time it took to soak up to temper different hide preparation techniques,
Right.
reflecting different moisture takes
Uh-huh.
time. And if I heard you right, you said that scalded hides took longer in the water.
Yeah, there's somehow it's stiffer. It's harder rawhide, but not, it's good rawhide.
It's been exactly the opposite for our experience. And our experience has been that with lined hides, they remain harder, stiffer, much longer than the scalded hides.
Wow.
And I can't explain this, but it's the reason that we have selected lined hides for
Right.
cores,
Right.
because they were stiffer. firm.
Good. Perfect.
We also noticed trying to grade that the lined hides taking longer to soak moisture would hold moisture a little
Right.
longer.
Oh, it will. Yeah.
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 But we noticed for our
Yeah.
experience, scalded hides would become hydrated quicker than lined hides.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know why.
I don't know why. I just noticed this by Jeff's place and now by Brandt's, that this scalded hides, they, even if they're mushy all the way through, they got a certain feel on them. They're not mushy. They're still solid, I don't know what it does to them, you know. Like if I would stay here in the States, I would probably only braid with this curved hides, you know, because they got a good feel on them. Like I only use cores, like stiff cores, or my average, this is like an average stiff core I do. I only use lime hides. But what I also noticed, your lime over here is different than mine in Germany. Your hides don't get as stiff as mine in Germany. Yeah. This is so funny, you know, like that different lime everywhere, you know. And I noticed, I took some lime home from northern Germany. It was totally different than the lime I have down there with me. No, I can fooling around. Like I was at Nate Wald's place. He had lime. He always was scared that they burn. Like Leonard Hansley told me too. You have to be careful washing them down after you got them dehaired with vinegar and all this, or they get burned. I never had this. Like the last hide, that red hide I had on Facebook, I made the core out of it. I don't know what happened, but I took that thing out, had it in the frame drying, and this thing was just plain white. Don't even know yet what was. I had it in the vinegar and all this, so I said, well, it's going to be core anyway, so I'm going to cut it apart. And I said, well, let's try it again. And I put some more vinegar into the tub and threw all the strings back in there. And a day later, it was all gone. So it was just that stain was still on top of the hide, you know. And that vinegar just ate it all up, and it was gone. You know? It was clear as it can be. So I don't have to be scared. And if you don't know how much vinegar you want to take for like a lime hide, take as much as you can. You can't take too much of vinegar, but you can have, what do you call it, not enough, you know. That's why I rather throw a bunch in there. I rather have all vinegar than not having enough, you know. And I also noticed in Germany, when I have clear vinegar, like water, it'll have a different color on the rawhide than if I take like red vinegar or brown vinegar. It changes the color on my rawhide. I got crazy seeing that. I said, man, what happened? I mean, same cow, and it just turned totally clear, unclear vinegar, you know. So if I want to play with rawhide, like having different colors in it, I can do that with vinegar control already.
But you can have two things with your vinegar.
Yeah.
The white vinegar is distilled, so it has less impurities in it.
Okay.
And so
Like bacteria? Yeah.
Just no tannins and
Right,
such,
right,
like
right,
from
right.
the apples or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that came from. And so you have one, the factor of more impurities, which would give color.
Right.
And the other is that the distilled vinegar has a higher acidity than
Right.
the undistilled.
And it'll make also the rawhide harder. I got the clear, like water vinegar, discovered that the hides will be harder, stiffer on me than the vinegar I've been using for with darker vinegar, you know. It's funny how all those things act, and you can control your rawhide and stiffness and all this without. I just having fun, you know. That's why I'm actually here talking to you guys. I give you all my experience, you know, and this is what I have fun at. Playing around with rawhide, doing different things, bevel there a little more, bevel this less, and just find out what is the finished product going to look like, doing this or not doing that, you know. And that's how I think you become a very good craftsman. Try things out, you know. Feel yourself free, try different things. I have ruined many hides, big time. I spend a lot of money doing it, you know. And but it gives you experience. I think the life is full of experience, and if you don't do this, I think you're dying, you know. You're never too old to make experience on things like this, and it will make you better. But you have to remember, it's the same with me as a horseshoer. People say, well, there's no way you can like after 8 weeks remember how my horse was walking, you know. You can train your brain doing this, you know, a movement getting in your head. Like I can tell after 8 weeks if a horse is better with this shoeing job or is he worse, you know. And it's the same with rawhide. You have to remember, or like Brent, he writes everything down like a girl, you know, like, but it's a good deal, you know. Do it. You always can go back and ask again if you have something, or look at your notes. But for me, if I used to go to a clinic in horseshoeing or whatever, I had one thing in my mind, and I only spent like, when I went up to the Argentina class in salmon, when Armando and Pablo were there, I only had one thing in my mind that I spent all this money on, you know. And that was just preparing rawhide. And I don't go for like, I have a whole list, I want to talk to these guys, you know. I can't keep it in my mind, you know. I'm not really smart in this, but if I can go by one thing and really go home and say, now I got it, you know, and that will get me a long ways. But if you take all together, you will maybe get better in little things, but you will not remember all of it, you know. But pick one thing per day and work on it. You know, like when I was at Jeff's place, he taught me the rawhiding. After he left the shop like at 5 or 6, I still stayed there till 9, you know. I mean, this guy was great. He didn't know me at all. I mean, he just let me stay in his shop, and I was just working. And then I went home and did in a hotel the same thing all night. So I had to show him something in the morning, you know. But keep on going, you know, like don't be afraid to screw up and things not going the same way. I mean, it happens to me. Sometimes I want to quit rawhiding because nothing works for me, and then I just take a rest. But now, since Brent told me go and pet your bridle horse, that really helped me big time. I was just about crying, you know. And there's certain times you have this. And I bet horse trainers have this and all kinds of craftsmen. But what Brent told me, just go and pet your bridle horse. Boy, it just makes me feel good, and I do this a lot now. You know, just in case I got in that mood, you know, I better do it before. But it helps. I think it's a real neat way, you know, saying something or help somebody. Some other guy said, oh yeah, just kind of take your time and but Brent, I will never forget this. And I owe you a lot for this, what you told me. And I think it's a great thing, you know. Always remember what you're doing all this for. It's for a horse, and like most of us breeders do something for a horse, or it's for a girl. But you can't go and pet girls like this, but I sure can on a horse, you know. And I always thank you for that, Brent. You know. Yeah.
Saddle makers call it bench founder.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good word for it.
That's why we're here. We just pull the shop up.
Great. Get off and go do something else, and that's a good way. Yeah, I love that, you know. If you're too much focused in something, somehow or some way, you get bench founder because your brain gets tired and you need to free up. This is just like if you're kicking all day and all week on a horse, training on them, they get kind of numb on you after a while. And I think that's what happens to me every once in a while. And it could also be the time where the sun is down. Like if in winter time you don't see the sun for a while, you know, you just get that way too. Like you feel bad and there's always things like that. And I think it's very important we have this in our gathering too, you know, feelings like that. That can cause a lot of problems in your rawhide because some of them, they don't quit. They keep even going harder on those things, and they screw up more and screw up more. I know already breeders that made them stop rawhiding at all, and they were good. They were just so foundered on all this.
Al Gould taught me that.
Yeah. It's good, you know. I mean, if somebody's really good in rawhiding, I don't understand why they quit. Because it's their passion. Like I felt real honored when Jay Adcock told me just lately, I quit rawhiding, but you got me back into rawhiding because I admire your work very much. And if this is already a message I can put on Facebook for all you guys, so I love my stuff myself, and I like to show it to all of you. Not showing off, but just to show you what you can be doing if you're really after it. And if I just pick one up, just like Jay Adcock, he gets back to work and wants to braid. It's the biggest deal you can think of, you know, helping a buddy, just getting back up and go to braiding shop and probably a lot of people know Jay Adcock. I never met him, but I love his work. He's doing real fancy work. And what made him quit? You know, like something must have happened.
Kids.
Huh?
Kids.
Yeah, well, yeah. But still, somehow, his brain must be still somewhere, you know, looking and watching. It's like me. I was talking on Facebook one time over making a core or whatever. Oh boy, I got texting coming in, and this is wrong, and all this. You know, this kind of people just make me not showing it anymore. I just shut up, not telling anything anymore. You know. I mean, instead of saying, let's say, well, could we do it that way maybe too? They said, no, we're not doing this. Like over at the Argentina braiding class, I had a bunch of guys coming with bozals to me and said, would you please look at it and critique it for me? And I said, okay, you really want to hear the truth? And they said, of course, that's why I'm asking you. I said, that's a fancy dog bone, but I wouldn't put it on a horse, you know. And there was another guy there, he was like 7 foot, and he walked around like a rooster. So, oh, you can tell that thing is out of balance and all this. I said, well, you guys were asking me. I just said, you want to hear the truth or not? That's my opinion. It doesn't mean that it's the law, the way I say it, but they ask me, you know. So if somebody out there walks up to me and said, can you look at my stuff? Maybe he just wants to hear the good stuff, or he wants to have, it's not bad stuff, it's just trying to get better, you know.
He ain't gonna get no better though.
Huh?
He won't get any better.
No. And I'm not saying this is bad, you know.
But everybody here, that's the reason they're here.
Yeah, exactly.
They ain't gonna be the ones that are.
But don't feel bad if I say, like, you got to overthink your system, you know, because it's may be off balance. But for me, the most important thing, does it fit the horse? Are things in positions where it needs to be? That's the way I look at it. Like, I think that was bad when Bill Dorrance told me when Louis was just came to, what do you call it, Paradise, where he was? Louis took somebody's braiding and knocked on his door. And Rose came out, and he said, excuse me, ma'am, I'm Bill Dorrance, and I would like to show my braidings to Louis Ortega. And she said, okay, hold on a second. So Louis came out, and he said, hi, I'm Bill Dorrance. I would like to show you what you think, and you might can correct me or critique me. So he took all that stuff, went back in, and shut the door. So Bill was standing out there and, you know, hanging around, and then about 5-10 minutes later he came out and threw it back at him, and he didn't say anything. He went back in, didn't even say goodbye or anything, and shut the door, you know. So Bill was just kind of, you know, hanging in there, said, he didn't say it's bad. And went home, and I think that's a good thinking, you know. Sometimes if you get things like today, I released a lot of things to you, you know, and having ideas. I like to see that people getting better. But for me, it's very bad and sad if I give people ideas to do things and they make a money profit out of it. like if I have a little tool, things like this, and show it to them. It's my idea. I discovered this. And pretty soon I see it somewhere. They start making those things and sell it to other people. I think this is sad. That also probably was a thing Luis Ortega started to shut up, not telling people, because they were trying to make money out of all these ideas. And Luis, I think, was a guy who made a living out of it. So why want you to release all your secrets from your business, because you're making a living on it, and other people might get into your business with your ideas and put you out of business, maybe cheaper,
But Louis never liked himself.
Oh, I don't know him. Yeah, but
He never liked himself.
yeah. But he was
He
good.
savaged himself.
Oh yeah, I bet.
He had a very dry sense of humor, and he's
But I understand him in that way. He had a business going. He had to pay a house and all this. So why want you to release all your secrets, because you're making a living of it? That's okay. But that's why everybody was after all his. And I went through all his stuff, and I got tons of pictures. Like I told Brent, focus on one thing. Get that style. Look at it. I always pick by the best. If I want to do something, I go to the best, look at his stuff, I like it, and go for that. This is my style. I want to do things. Because for me, Luis Ortega used to be a vaquero, or like Bill too. And this is what they used to use, and it worked good for them. Why look up to somebody else? May look nice in the braidings, but it doesn't fit a horse. Same with hobbles or quirt. I think one of the very, very most difficult thing is to make a quirt that is really balanced, like what used to be for, to get over that bossel on the nose while the horse was bucking. I mean, you can't have these soft quirts doing this. You would have never get to that nose button while the horse was bucking. So I'm sure there needed to be a certain balance, having this quirt in a place where you had it all nice and loose, And the way I was looking at Luis's quirts, I mean, they were a piece of art. I don't know if they really worked that way too, And if you're really looking at some quirts, every once in a while you see hanging in old barns, Visalia barns. They were a lot smaller, shorter, and not like with all this. I mean, what are those quirts usually? I don't know. I never saw or had it in the hand, a Louis quirt. But this long with the...
Some quirts.
They're quite...
Some quirts, like where I come from, we carried them inside our cabs.
Uh-huh.
We used them in corrals.
Uh-huh.
We didn't use them on horses.
See?
If you took them to a horse, they'd run you off.
Right.
I know of two different distinct types of quirts.
Uh-huh.
One for inside the leggings.
Okay.
One like that, if you can slap a neck,
Uh-huh.
you can slap a horse.
It's interesting, see?
You
actually,
just gotta remember, there's uses for both.
Right.
the most I've used a quirt for is in training handball horses.
Uh-huh.
When you turn a horse on the fence, say the fence is on your right, you'll have your quirt hanging on your left pinky finger.
Right.
Dip his nose, lay your left leg on his side, hit him on the butt to hurry him on through the turn and get him turning quicker.
Yeah.
And many years ago, I didn't understand why short quirts were best for that job.
Yeah.
And I had a little Spanish bar mare that was quicker than a cat on wheels. And I had gotten a Jack Shepherd quirt, and I thought it needed a bigger, longer, heavier popper on it. So I put me a big, long, heavy popper on it.
Right.
This little mare's getting really catty, and I'm turning her to the left, had the quirt on my right little finger. And she knew it was coming because it's come every time she turned. She turned so fast, she turned completely out from underneath it, and I swung through and hit myself in the left ear real hard. Then I understood why those old boys use short quirts.
Yeah. That's what I mean. There's long things on. I just remembered a thing. I really thought that was an important thing to tell you. Last year I was in Argentina to see Armando and Pablo, And when I got over at Armando's, in his tack room, I look on all his braidings and hobbles and all this, and it was like some of them this thick, full of that gray mold. Everything was just full of it. You know, it's a so moist air. I mean, we're talking about in those Argentina, like at Armando's, I got out of the bed and got into moist, damp clothes. Like that moist got into the house too. Or at night, I got into the moist bed, you know. But anyway, over there, I noticed, and I walked around the gear, and one of a sudden there was a clear, nice looking piece of rawhide without any mold on it. Did you think of what it was? It was made in Montana, and by Nate Wald. It was a quirt, and he makes it all with the lime certain way, and he didn't have anything on it. I mean, that thing was just fresh, clear, no mold or anything on it, you know. The rotted rawhide they were using there was scraped or softened, and that picked up that moisture real quick and start to mold. And I think if you scrape a rawhide, it's alive. If you lime a hide, it's dead. And if you have a scraped rawhide, you'll have a lot of pores where the mold can put their roots into it, you know. And they might be quiet over the summertime while it's hot, but they start grow when it starts getting moist, you know. I mean, we're talking about that thing was like rouge on it, you know. And Armando didn't sell one of his quirts. I think that was his last TCA he had. He didn't sell a quirt. And that quirt was full of black spots. It was all made by horse hide, you know. And he had a little bit of that mold on it, but the whole thing had black spots on it. These black spots will eat your rawhide. That's bad if you got that there, you know. And it took me 2 hours to get that thing somehow a little bit clean, you know, make it look nice. I mean, like, he had long buttons there, fit work with 80 and 90 strings, you know. And think about it, that much work in there and didn't got sold because they had some other country, they had a tornado. Most of the guys, they wanted to come and buy the TCA stuff, couldn't fly in. So he was the one who took the quirt back home.
How did you paint it? What did you paint it with?
I found a little thin bucket with some funny soap in it. It was kind of a melted hand soap, and I looked for a toothbrush, and I just spit on it and start cleaning it. And I had a towel with me and start cleaning with this. And I had an awl that was like Lynn makes them or Jeff makes. They were flat on one side and the other one. So I went over to those black spots and started scratching on them, you know. And some of them came off, and some of them got smaller, and some of them just didn't get off at all. And then I found some Vaquero rawhide cream, and then I really worked it into it. And I mean, most of rawhide they do down there for like softening, it's all scraped, you know. But that rawhide is still alive, you know. And that's why I think the best rawhide that it's like over in California, it always is the same humidity, you know. It's always dry over there, so the rawhide doesn't do like this and
It's oil with water.
Yeah. Right. But down in Argentina, I mean, this was so fun. I mean, wherever you were looking at, I mean, these guys must think rawhide. I mean, wherever you look at, it's all made out of rawhide. Even under the saddle, they got this big old saddle blanket out of rawhide that the water, the sweat doesn't get up all the way up to the saddle, you know. Even this, you know, like the cinches, everything I mean, what a country, you know, for us rawhiders. I mean, it's great, you know. But I thought, and I always remember this, you know, with this. I mean, you should have seen this cord from Nate. It was hanging there, all between this molded stuff. I mean, it was sticking out, you know. And I know he made that cord for Luis Alberto Flores, and when he died, his wife gave it to Armando. And Pablo had a pair of reins, and she gave it to Pablo from Luis. But it was interesting to see all these guys down there doing their different things. And if you guys ever having a chance to go and visit down in Argentina, it's fun. It really is to see all this. There is not only Pablo braiding. I mean, there's a lot of other guys braiding too down there, and they sure do a nice job, you know. And it got to be open-minded. I mean, for me, I like Argentina style, but California style is my passion. I will not look off to any other things. Yeah.
That's a bit of something else. That area where Pablo lives.
Huh?
That area
Yeah.
where Pablo lives.
That deal?
That deal.
Yeah.
It has the perfect humidity for salami.
Oh yeah.
They are
See.
thankful for salami.
That's gonna be a hard place to live, I'll tell
In my
you.
province, it's dry bone.
Yeah.
California.
Okay.
So it's not good for make salami.
Right.
It's good to make prosciutto ham.
Oh yeah.
So it's like we make prosciutto ham and then we trade.
Wow. Great.
Deal for you.
Interesting. Yeah. See. No, it's interesting country, you know, and they really think rawhide down there. I mean, they don't know leather. Yeah.
I was talking with Chuck Storm the other day.
Yeah.
And he told me that you guy in Montana, you just said his name.
Nate Wall.
Nate Wall.
Yeah.
He lies his hide. not
He lines.
It's lye, not lime.
That's
That's what he told me.
What?
That's what he uses.
What is lye is lime. It's slime.
Lye and lime is the same.
It's the same. Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's
Lime is
not.
calcium hydroxide, lye is caustic soda. They're two different.
Okay, a bit lime.
They're both bases though.
You know what?
Well, that ties into an experiment that I did 2-3 weeks ago. I wanted to dehair a horse belly, and I just took my little Oster clippers with the surgical blades and clipped the hair down to close as I could get it. And then I went to the drugstore and bought some Nair that ladies use on their legs, and smeared it on, and in about 10 minutes wiped it off, clean as a whistle, came out real nice. And I've been doing some reading on the chemical composition of that, and what you have is an extremely dilute solution of lime and lye with emollients and perfume and stuff to make it easy on a lady's legs. So I want to experiment with taking just the raw ingredients, lime and lye, and mixing it, clip the hair so you'd have to leave the chemicals on less time. And as it was with the commercial product, it took 10 minutes, and I just hosed it off, and the hair was gone.
Only
Never
what it
heard
does
of
to
it.
the hide.
Well, it doesn't scald the lady's legs.
Always new
so-
ways doing it. Huh?
Instead of Nair,
Yeah, I know, but
use
this-
paint, it's less corrosive.
Uh-huh.
It's used on dogs, and the dog shouldn't go world for hairless crustaceans.
Uh-huh.
To remove the hair off the dog, and it doesn't burn the skin. Their skin is more delicate than dogs.
Right. Well, what I was thinking was actually making a stronger mix and just using it for a couple minutes, just put it on, get it off.
What would happen to it if you poured vinegar on it?
What's that?
Like a quart or a
Uh-huh.
bottle that's already made?
Uh-huh.
It starts getting them black spots.
Uh-huh.
Vinegar is supposed to be good for mold. Help
Yeah.
with mold and stuff.
Try it.
Pour on,
Uh-huh.
pour
Right.
it on and wash it off.
Yeah. Yeah, you could, I guess. You know, it happens to me, like if I find some rawhide in my old tempering barrel, it's been in there a year, it might has a few spots on it. And yeah, some of them I'll throw it away, but some of them, it depends on how deep it goes with those black rotten, these are really rotten spots, you know. But it's a good idea what you say with that vinegar, you know. I'll have to try it out and find out. It's a good way, yeah. Appreciate that. It's a good idea. Huh?
So what would you put in your saddle soap and what have you to keep it from molded. Is there anything you can add to it?
Nothing. I don't have that problem. It's just my
I don't
saddle,
have it either. I'm in
my
California, but I mean,
my saddle soap doesn't live very long. You know.
Actually,
These are all questions. I mean, you have to figure out and ask. Yeah, that's a good deal. Huh?
actually, saddle soap is a kind of an inhibitor for mold. You clean it and soap it up real good when you're done. It will keep it from molding for quite a while.
Right.
And if you just leave it there, it'll grow blue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. Like over there in Germany, if I use all on my finishing, all I've been using is the Vaquero rawhide cream, you know, and I really rub it deep and hard in there, but over there it doesn't turn white after a while. But I've noticed that brands and other braiders, they've been using this stuff, that Vaquero rawhide creams in certain countries, it turns white after it dries, you know. And so I'm wondering, and I'm really scared now, my rubbings in there, if they might get white too, because I hate it so much, you know, see that white stuff on it. I don't know if it's the air.
On the leather too, though, remember it's like on the leather more.
Yeah. Huh? Or you might just had a bad, I know they changed their system with the Vaquero rawhide cream. It's not the same rawhide cream anymore like it was like 10 years ago.
I've never used it.
Like-
I always used my own mix.
Yeah.
Tallow and beeswax.
But it used to be a lot more clear, and now it turns more white. It's kind of I don't know, something soap is in there, you know. And that turns the rawhide a little more, I mean, it gets in between the grooves, it turns white, you know. And I used not to have this like 10, 15 years ago. So they changed something in their system, you know. But it's still, I like it. I will not change my system, you know, as long as I can. And I will rub that magic right into it with this stuff and make Brent happy. Alrighty, you guys, it's enough for that. And thanks for listening to me. I'm glad to. Thank you.